joins us now live from Washington. Thanks so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. We can't run through the entire checklist of criteria, as to why you think Trump will actually lose. But in a few words, if you can, tell us why you believe Joe Biden will take the 2020 election.
Yes. According to my system, the keys to the White House, elections are basically votes up or down on the strength and performance of the party holding the White House, the Republicans and Trump. And in 2019, Trump was looking pretty good. But then America was hit with multiple crises. And Trump made a fundamental mistake for the nation and for his reelection. Instead of dealing with the crises, he thought he can talk his way out of them. It didn't work. The result was a failed presidency and a prediction of his loss because we had an election year recession. We had terrible long-term economic growth as a result of the sharp downturns this year. And we had widespread social unrest that Trump fanned rather than quelled.
I've seen your confidence in predicting these elections, even when it hasn't been the candidate that you support. So your model is objective. It really is. But this time around, there could be, let me put it, there could be some wild cards, I think, not least a reliance on mail-in voting and the fact that Trump says, the whole vote could be rendered fraudulent, except in Florida now, apparently. That's another story. Are you taking into consideration these potential anomalies here this time?
As I explained in my New York Times video, there are anomalies that lie outside the keys, but they have nothing to do with fraudulent mail-in voting. That is an absolute myth. Voter fraud is vanishingly small in America, and mail-in ballots have been used successfully by 5 states, including deep red Utah. Rather, the anomalies are as follows. Number one, as you saw with Trump's attack on mail-in voting, his undermining of the post office, there could be widespread voter suppression by Trump and his enablers, and we might not get a free and fair vote. And secondly, we are very likely to get Russian interference once again, which Trump will once again welcome and exploit. I'm not saying these external factors will override the keys, but I am saying these are things to watch out for.
They are things to watch out for. And if they do, manifest in this election, do you think Trump will accept the results if he loses? And could that actually throw your model out the window, so to speak?
Well, Trump trying to not accept the results of an American presidential election, it's unprecedented. We've had the peaceful transfer of power since 1800. It's been a great American tradition. And Trump really can't stop it. Look, his term ends on January 20th, 2021, no matter how he may bluster. And he's not going to get anywhere in the courts challenging the election. The truth is, if he delays things until January 20th, his term blips out. Mike Pence's term blips out. And guess who becomes president? The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Okay. Something interesting, Allan, because you really don't trust the polls. And I can see why, especially given what happened in 2016. But, I remember elections before. Look at George W. Bush versus John Kerry. You had a president running for re-election who had abysmally low approval ratings. That failed foreign policy that's on your checklist there, wow, he nailed that one because the war in Iraq was an absolute disaster. It had been recognized by then. He was also a president that lost the popular vote to Al Gore. Now, so many said just based on that, the fact that he didn't win the popular vote in the first round and that he oversaw this disastrous war that was going to be ongoing, there was no way he could win re-election. Yet he did. Do you ever fear that that could happen again with Trump, even though all the indicators are working against him? Somehow the American electorate will surprise us because we're in the midst not of a war, but a pandemic.
Well, forget the polls, forget the pundits, forget approval ratings. I correctly predicted the re-election of George W. Bush in 2004, which you can imagine did not make me very popular in 90% plus Democratic Washington, D.C. That's why there are 13 indicators and not just one or two, and you can't focus on one or two indicators. But looking at all the indicators, there weren't enough out against him to predict George W. Bush's defeat. And in terms of the polls, by the way, I became quite notorious for saying in 1988, George H.W. Bush, his dad, was a shoo-in to win, even though he was 17 points behind Michael Dukakis in the polls, because he was running on the record, which was quite successful, of Ronald Reagan's second term. Remember, keep in mind, look at the big picture of how well the party in power has governed. My big message to your viewers is it's governing, not campaigning, not the polls, not the punditry that counts.
Allan Lichtman, great to have you. Hopefully I'll talk to you again to see if your record remains unbroken in November. Take care. Thanks for being with us. Yeah.
Thanks.
Now.